Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today we are on another romance novel that I checked out and read, and this was in my category of cliche romance. At least that's what I'm calling it. It's not really it. I believe this falls under either Victorian or Regency, which I don't actually know the difference between those two. I think they're different ruling monarchs maybe. I'm not entirely sure, but this was the book that I read, Do You Want to Start a Scandal by Tessa Dare. So the first thing I would like to know is in my review of all of the romance books that I checked out, I believe I said Tessa Dare sounded like a pen name. I was wrong. I was mistaken. It appears that Tessa Dare is a real person and this is her. So apologies to Tessa Dare. You are not a pen name apparently, and I was mistaken. But you do have a pretty cool name. I wish I had the last name Dare. That just seems super cool. So this book is the classic paperback romance that I think we've all seen in the grocery store or just in bookstores. It is the man who has mysteriously lost his shirt and this woman whose dress is held up by nothing more than thoughts and prayers, and they're in this generic hallway and they're sharing an intimate moment. So in this book, Charlotte, who is this girl, is meeting with this man, Piers. He's Lord Granville, but he's also Piers. I'm gonna call him Piers. And they meet at this ball, and basically Charlotte's mother is trying to get her engaged to a very well-to-do man because you got to move up in ranks, and Charlotte is not having it because she's already been the embarrassment of these gossip papers and she doesn't want to be embarrassed anymore. So she goes and corners Piers and says, hey, you can't fall for my mother's tricks. And Piers is more or less like, who are you? And then they hear someone coming, so they have to hide behind these curtains, and then there's this mysterious encounter where two people are involved in extracurricular activities in the room, and some kid overhears, but it's not Piers and Charlotte, and the mysterious couple leaves, and then Piers and Charlotte come out of the room, and everyone's like, you were doing what in the library or wherever they were at? And then it's a big scandal. So now they have to pretend like they're going to be engaged, even though Charlotte's like, I will never love you, and Piers is like, I'm a bad man and this woman can never love me. And then it's just their dramatics and the drama as Charlotte tries to untangle the real identities of the two people, having a little meeting in the library to clear her name and Piers' name so they can go about their ways, because Charlotte has plans with her life that do not involve getting married to Piers. So as we can tell by the cover, we know exactly how their romance is going to go and exactly how it's going to end up, but we have to go through 300 pages of drama. I will say that one thing I do like is that there's something else going on in this book besides the romance, which is a big thing that I don't like in romance books, or something that turns me off from romance books, is when romance is the only feature, which is the feature of a romance book. But romance is not the only feature of this book because there's this mystery that has to solve, but I have to say I was very unsatisfied with how the romance was solved. As in, or not the romance, the mystery was solved, but I guess I shouldn't be disappointed because it's not a mystery book, so why am I disappointed in the fact that the mystery didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to? I don't know. I was just hoping for something different with the mystery, but it mostly just wound up being about romance and romance and romance, but the mystery aspect did add a little extra dimension, which kept me a little more entertained. I think the characters were a little more believable than the previous romance book I read, Racked and Stacked. They do have a little bit of depth, but it does feel a little unrealistic. I'm gonna let that pass for plot convenience. But they're always in these situations where they're talking to each other or they have to spend time together, and they are doing their thing. Slowly but surely not falling in love, but definitely falling in love. One thing that makes me wonder if let me restart that sentence. So I know this like Victorian Regency romance is kind of big. There's a lot of books in this genre, for lack of a better word, and I never really knew why. I think maybe one of the reasons people like it is because there's like a forbidden aspect of it. Things are very proper in this time, especially amongst like people who have money and titles. So there's a lot of rules of etiquette about not being alone with a man, and that's something that isn't so true in the modern romances, where you can just be like, come over to my place, and there's no real questions, or no one's really socially shaming you, or your reputation isn't ruined because of it. Where in these books, there's a lot more reputation and family name and stuff at stake, so there's a lot more complications and hurdles to get over to spend time together. And that's why I wonder if people like these books, because they have that extra added difficulty of like etiquette and decorum that has to be followed before they can spend time together. That was just my assessment of maybe that's why people like this. Yeah, another thing I thought that was slightly disappointing about this book was that Charlotte had these grand plans to travel the continent with her best friend, which seemed like a pretty cool plan, and then at the end she, as far as I can tell, doesn't do it. She just marries this dude, which, I don't know. I know it's like a different time and place and women couldn't do certain things. Her friend was like going on this trip by herself, but I was like, well, girl, why can't you go on that trip? I understand there's like different rules about like married women doing things, and maybe she is going to go on the trip and I just missed that part, but I was just kind of disappointed because I'd rather travel the continent than get married to a lord, just out of my own personal opinion. But Charlotte can do what she wants. Things going in favor of this book, the additional aspect besides romance I did think Charlotte was kind of a funny, likable character. Yeah, see, I'm already drawing a blank. Charlotte was a funny and likable character and added a little something. The last romance book that I read, both characters fell flat for me, so the fact that one of the characters was likable in this book really added to it. There's a scene between her and her mother where her mother's trying to explain what happens with a married couple after they get married, and she's involving a lot of fruits and vegetables, and it's a pretty entertaining and funny scene, so it does have that going for it. I would say this book is better than the last romance book I read. I don't know if I would gravitate towards it again, but I think if you are a romance fan, I see why you would like a book written by Tessa Dare, because she has funny, likable characters. If you're okay with knowing exactly how the story is going to go, you're probably not going to be upset with the cliche aspects of it, and there's some funny moments to it. So overall, I think people who like romance or who aren't opposed to romance will like this book. It just wasn't entirely for me, but in terms of romance books, it was definitely on the better end, just because it had those aspects that I did enjoy. So my rating compared to all my other books would probably be a 2-star, but my rating compared to all the other romance books I've read would probably be like a 3-star. So overall, it's one of the, I would put it in the upper 50% of romance books that I've ever read, but not by much, just because I didn't really like Piers as a character, but I did like Charlotte, so I only liked 50% of this character duo. Not the worst I've read, but I think if you like romance, I really can say you probably would enjoy Tessa Dare, because if I found enjoyable aspects as someone who doesn't read this type of book, I'm sure you will find a lot of enjoyable aspects as someone who does read this type of book. If you've read anything else by Tessa Dare or have any other comments about this, I would love to hear it. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.